Good afternoon. We're here in Phoenix. I'm Bo with Phat Scooters. We're here to talk about the common misconceptions about other competitor scooters out there in the market. We spent a lot of time researching the marketplace, visiting factories overseas, and really learning everything we could before we settled on the design that we came up with here. This is one of the original scooters we ordered from a factory overseas. It's one that you'll see online and being sold out there in the marketplace, and I'm going to go through some of the things that are different and some of the things, because if you simply look at both scooters from a distance, they look very similar. When you really dig in and look at these features, there's a huge amount of issues associated with some of these Chinese factory bikes that haven't been modified for the US market. The first one is I want to talk about is speed. A lot of these bikes go faster than 20 miles an hour, and that's not safe for the US market. The maximum speed for riding in the bike lane in the US market is 20 miles an hour. Faster is not always better, guys. First of all, safety. You want to be safe. If you're going over 20 miles an hour, you can get a speeding ticket in the bike lane. We want you to be safe, and so our bikes have a bike mode which limits the speed to 20 miles an hour. The other thing you're going to see out there in the marketplace is wattage. Our scooter over here has a 1200 watt motor. It's built inside the hub here. 1200 watts. The speed, like I said, is only 20 miles an hour, but the wattage is what gives you torque. So if you need to climb a hill, if you're on the beach and need to climb back up to your house, everybody knows about the steep hills on the cliffs of California. You need that torque from that 1200 watt motor. This bike right here has an 800 watt motor. You'll have to sit there and push the bike up the hill. It's not going to climb it. Even though this bike has a higher end top speed because the company doesn't limit it for the US market, it will not climb a hill. It doesn't have the torque that our bike has. The other thing I want to talk about is basically the deck height. If you're standing on this bike, the deck height is higher than ours. So the top of the deck is higher, but yet the clearance is lower. So if you're going over a speed bump, you're going to drag. The battery hangs down like 3.5 inches below the deck. Also, having this deck height higher when you're standing on the scooter, if you feel like you're too high, you feel like it's uncomfortable. So bringing the deck height down on our scooter and then sucking the battery up underneath into the cavity of the frame really gives you the clearance you need to clear speed bumps, but also gives you a really comfortable ride. Some other features to look at is the wirings. Just look at the wiring that's hanging out here. All this stuff, the poor quality of the wiring. All your electronics in this are in this box that's underneath here. So if water gets in there, it's going to short out, and you're going to have a problem with it. All our electronics are up here in this plate up here, and the battery sits in the compartment underneath here. That gives us an advantage when you're in a wet environment, running through puddles. You're not going to have the issues you'll have with a scooter like this. One thing good about this scooter is it does have the front shocks on it. Most of the competitor scooters out there are a hard frame, and when you don't have this front shock system, you really have a rigid ride. So that's one good feature that this bike does have. So now we're looking at the Phat scooter, and I want to talk about some of the things that we just showed you on the competitor bike. Let's talk about deck height. The deck height is a little lower on ours, but your clearance is higher. Our battery's tucked all the way up underneath here to let you, go over curbs or speed bumps without rubbing the bottom of it. The lower deck height gives you a better center of gravity when standing or sitting. You don't feel like you're top heavy on a Phat scooter. If you look at our cable management, how it attaches to the headlight here, how all the cables are tucked in, attached to the frame with zip ties, etc. All the cables go up under here, and the electronics are in the front part of the frame here. So the water compartment is protected from water much better than if it was underneath here where water's getting kicked up and underneath into that tray. The only thing under here is your battery. The battery drops down with these 4 screws. You can switch the battery out easily as needed. Some of the other things I want to talk about is seat height. If we look at the seat height's about 2 or 3 inches taller on a Phat scooter, yet the deck height is lower. So if you look at me, I'm 6'2". When I'm sitting on this bike, it's very comfortable. It feels like it should. I don't feel like I'm going to tip over when I'm sitting on it. Now when I walk over to our competitor scooter here, it's a shorter bike. The deck height is higher, the seat's lower. and I'm really confined. It's not a comfortable ride. I don't have that same feeling, and I don't feel like the center of gravity is as nice on this bike. So I want to talk a little bit more about electronics, and when we're talking about electronics, you know, it always seems like more is better, but in the case of Chinese manufactured products, we feel that less is more. And if you take a look at the headlight assembly here, you know, it's got an LED front that's a very poor light, doesn't give you a lot of light at night. You know, it's a real plastic, cheap case. And one of the other things that a lot of the competitors are pitching is that they have alarm systems, electric starts. They have apps that attach to the bike so you can change the speed and do all this different stuff. When we started looking at some of these electronics, we realized that what do you do if your alarm breaks? Where do you get parts for it? How do you get the bike started again if your alarm key isn't working? All these things we took into account. We eliminated everything that wasn't necessary for turning the key and going. Who needs an app that you can attach to your bike? Who needs an alarm system on a scooter that you can lock with a bike lock? It doesn't do you any good. All it's going to do is break and cause problems. So with Phat scooters, we eliminated all those electronics and brought it down to just the simple turn the key and it starts. The other thing about the scooter is we wanted a really nice headlight. If we walk over here to the Phat scooter and you take a look at the front end of this, it's a high quality indicator. You've got battery indicators. You've got a single turn of the key gives you a daytime running light that you'll see here. It's just the outer perimeter. And if you're running at night, we have a really bright, I mean, this thing is blinding. It is so bright, gives you great vision at night. One of the things we noticed on every single scooter that we rode that was from the original prototypes that we were importing from the various factories overseas, was that this gooseneck rattled loose. And when that happens, your handlebars start to move. And that's extremely dangerous. Every single bike did it. These bolts will come out and then the handlebars will go loose on you and you'll crash. So one of the things we did when the first adjustments we made, you might be able to see it here, is we changed the way the mount happens here. Take a look at our mounting plate. You've got 4 screws that go on when you receive it, but this is welded to the handlebars. So that can't happen. If these do rattle loose, all you'll get is a little vibration. You tighten them back down with maybe put a little Loctite in them or something to lock them up, but your handlebars are never going to flop on you to where you're going to crash. If we take a look at how this frame is constructed, first of all, it's about half the gauge of the Phat scooter frame in terms of how thick and heavy the frame is for strength, and a real rigid, strong frame will give you a smoother ride. If you take a look at some of these bend marks where they've crimped this, it's just such a poor quality piece of metal that when they start to bend these, they start to get these ridges in the frame. If we walk over to the Phat scooter here, you're going to see a heavy-duty, thicker frame, very smooth bend. That gives you a feel, you know, you don't have any of those ridges here. It gives you a very good feel for how much of a quality bike this is. So I want to talk a little bit about braking systems. One thing that we found with most of the systems that were out there on the majority of the factory bikes that came over in our original prototyping, after very limited use, they started to squeak. If you don't have high quality brake components, first of all, it's not going to stop real well, and second of all, it's going to start squeaking, and that's annoying. So we took a look and really found a great braking system. Take a look at the different brakes that are on this bike here. You know, it does have a disc brake system. You know, the caliper is very small. The disc is very small. If we move over to the Phat scooter bike here, you're going to see the quality of the fit and finish on the braking system. Not only is the cabling and everything else so nice, but take a look at the braking on it and you're going to see the quality difference just visually looking at it. The biggest thing about the braking system on a Phat scooter is it's an electronic brake. So when you pull the brake, it cuts the motor. So you're not going to burn your motor out. You're not going to have any problems with having the throttle going and putting on the brake. The minute you pull the brake, it has an electronic system that cuts the motor out, so you're no longer throttling. Even if you have the throttle full on, if you hit the brake, it's going to cut the throttle out. A very important safety feature on a Phat scooter. So I'll tell you what, I'm ready to get out of this heat, but I wanted to, give you a few last pointers. When you're out there searching, they're all going to look the same online. The pictures don't do justice to the quality of the bike. You really have to call the companies, ask about services, ask about parts. Where are you going to get the parts from? Are they going to stock parts? Where are you going to get tires? They don't sell these tires in the U.S. market. You have to get them from a scooter supplier. Phat Scooters stocks all the parts for their bikes. We warranty our bikes and stock all the parts necessary for our bikes. All we do is scooters. So if you're looking for a high quality product that's going to give you fewer problems, nothing's perfect, but if you want a company that's going to support you through those issues, Phat Scooter's the company for you.